The afternoon was quiet in the way small towns sometimes are. Not silent. Just gently paused between breaths. Warm sunlight rested across the narrow wooden porch like golden dust settling slowly on old memories. The woman sat alone on the third step, fingers loosely tracing the worn pattern of the dress she was wearing that day. She was not thinking about anything important. Just watching the street. Listening to the soft movement of the world continuing without hurry. A distant radio played somewhere behind closed windows. A child laughed once, then ran away chasing something unseen. Life felt ordinary. Comfortable. Predictable. And then she noticed the puppy. He was sitting across the street near the cracked edge of the old convenience store wall. Not moving. Just sitting. Like he had been placed there intentionally by the afternoon itself. The puppy was small, probably only a few months old. His fur was a mixture of dusty cream and light brown, touched unevenly by street life. Not dirty in a tragic way. Just tired. Like someone who had walked too far without knowing where home was. One ear folded slightly forward. The other stood uncertainly upright. The woman did not notice him immediately as a stray animal. What caught her attention was the way he was looking at her. Not sideways. Not wandering. Directly. Patiently. As if time itself was something he was willing to wait beside. People sometimes say animals beg for food when they are hungry. But this puppy was not begging. His eyes carried something softer. Something careful. Almost thoughtful. Every few seconds, the puppy would tilt his head slightly to the left. As if listening to a conversation that the woman could not hear. The woman felt the smallest unfamiliar sensation inside her chest. Not fear. Not excitement. Something quieter. Like meeting someone you have forgotten but are not allowed to recognize yet. She adjusted the sleeve of her dress slowly. Habit. Nothing more. The mark underneath was old. Hidden most days. The woman did not like thinking about it. Because marks sometimes carry stories people are not ready to finish. Across the street, the puppy suddenly stood up. Slowly. Not with the sudden energy that young animals usually have. His movement was careful, deliberate, respectful of the silence around him. He took one step forward. Then stopped. He looked at her. Waited. The woman watched without realizing she was holding her breath. The puppy took another step. Then another. There was something strangely polite about the way he moved. As if he was approaching someone who might be startled by sudden closeness. The distance between them shrank slowly. Street dust shimmered softly under sunlight that felt warmer now than it had been minutes before. The puppy paused again when he reached the middle of the road. No cars were passing. The town street was quiet during this hour. Still, the puppy waited as if invisible permission was required. Then he continued walking. Small steps. One, pause. Another, pause. The woman noticed something else. The puppy's tail was not moving quickly like a happy animal's tail should. It moved once. Very slowly. Like a heartbeat trying to speak without sound. When he finally reached the edge of the porch steps, he stopped. Close enough that she could see the uneven rhythm of his breathing. Close enough that sunlight touched the soft fur around his eyes. The puppy did not jump onto the porch. Did not bark. Did not make the noises people expect from lost animals searching for attention. Instead, he lowered himself gently onto the ground. Like someone choosing to rest after a long journey. Then he looked at her left arm. Directly. The woman felt something tighten softly inside her chest. Not pain. Not panic. Just awareness. Her left sleeve had slipped slightly during her movement. The old mark was partly visible now. It was not large. a faded shape that time had softened but not erased. The puppy's gaze settled there. Unmoving. Focused. Like someone remembering a story without speaking it. The woman slowly raised her hand and adjusted the sleeve back into place. Not because she was afraid. She simply felt the quiet instinct of privacy. But the moment the mark disappeared from view, the puppy made a tiny sound. Not a bark. Not a whine of hunger. Something softer. Almost like a disappointed breath released from a small body that did not want to be loud. The woman froze. Then slowly, very slowly, lowered her arm again. The puppy relaxed instantly. His body loosened. His tail moved once more, the same slow heartbeat movement. The woman felt warmth spreading quietly behind her ribs. She had never experienced anything like this with an animal before. Stray dogs usually approached because of food, or fear, or loneliness that spoke through hunger. But this puppy was different. He was watching her, studying her, as if trying to confirm something that lived inside her and not outside her. The woman spoke quietly without realizing she was going to speak. "Are you lost?" Her voice was soft, almost carried by the afternoon wind itself. The puppy tilted his head, as if the sound of her voice was something familiar but distant. He did not answer, of course. Instead, he lowered his front body slightly, almost like a respectful greeting, and placed his chin gently on the wooden step. The gesture felt intentional, meaningful, as if he wanted the woman to know that he was not afraid of her. The woman felt an unexpected tightening behind her eyes. She did not know why, but something inside her wanted to believe that this puppy was not behaving like a typical stray. He was waiting, observing, remembering something she herself could not remember clearly. She placed one hand slowly on her knee. The sunlight moved gently across the porch boards as the wind touched the leaves of the tree beside the house. The puppy's eyes followed the movement of her hand. Careful, patient, focused again on the mark beneath her sleeve when the wind lifted the fabric slightly. The woman thought of how strange it was that the world could feel so ordinary, and yet suddenly carry the weight of a question you never knew you were meant to answer. The puppy did not move. He simply watched her as if time had chosen this moment to speak quietly. Because sometimes animals do not search for homes. Sometimes they search for people. And sometimes, the search is not about finding food or safety, but about finding the memory hidden inside someone's heart. The woman felt a quiet, unfamiliar curiosity growing inside her chest. Not fear. Not sadness. Just a soft, uncertain feeling that something small and living had come looking for her. The puppy blinked slowly. Once. Then again. And the woman wondered why it felt like he was studying the mark on her arm as if it were a language he was trying to read. Because the puppy was not acting lost. He looked like he had come searching. And what the dog sensed would change everything. The puppy did not rush toward her. He waited. The way morning light waits quietly behind closed curtains before entering a room. The woman noticed the patience in his posture. His front legs were slightly folded beneath his chest, his head resting loosely on them like someone who had decided that this moment was safe enough to breathe slowly. The street behind them continued its ordinary life. Someone shut a distant door. A bicycle chain rattled once and disappeared into silence. Warm sunlight shifted across the wooden steps, touching the woman's shoes where small dust particles moved like invisible dancing stars. The puppy's eyes remained on her. Not wandering. Not searching for movement elsewhere. Focused. Almost respectfully attentive. The woman felt a strange comfort growing inside her chest. Like sitting beside someone who understood silence better than words. She spoke again. "You really are a strange little one." Her voice was softer this time, like speaking to someone who was not fully a stranger. The puppy's ears moved slightly when she spoke. Not startled, just listening, as if the sound of her voice carried meaning beyond simple human language. He slowly lifted his head, then stood up. But he did not move closer immediately. He took one small step forward, then paused. The woman noticed something beautiful in the movement. There was no desperation in the puppy's approach, no hungry urgency that street animals sometimes carry in their steps. Instead, he moved like someone who was given permission to exist near her. The distance between them was now only 2 steps. The puppy stopped again. The afternoon wind lifted the edge of her sleeve slightly. The old mark appeared once more beneath the fabric. The puppy's gaze shifted instantly, like a quiet reflex that came from somewhere deep inside him. The woman noticed. Her fingers unconsciously tightened around the cloth of her dress. She did not know why she felt protective of that mark. It was not a beautiful mark. Time had faded its original shape. But memories sometimes live not inside perfect images, but inside things people try to hide. The puppy lowered his body slowly onto the second step. Now they were almost at the same level. The sunlight touched both of them in the same golden softness. The woman realized something odd. The puppy was not trying to climb into her personal space. He was trying to match her presence, like sitting beside someone rather than standing above or below them. "Are you hungry?" she asked gently. It was the natural question humans ask animals first. The puppy did not respond with excitement. Instead, he tilted his head slightly. Then he looked at the small metal bowl sitting near the porch wall. She had forgotten it was there. Yesterday she had placed it outside without thinking. Slowly, the woman stood up. The movement was careful, unhurried, respectful of the fragile emotional atmosphere that seemed to exist between them. She walked inside the house. The wooden floor whispered softly under her steps. Inside, the kitchen smelled faintly of warm bread from earlier that morning. She opened a small container and took out leftover chicken pieces. Not too much. Just enough. Because something inside her felt that giving too much too quickly might break the quiet understanding forming outside. When she returned to the porch, the puppy was waiting exactly where she left him. Patient. Like time itself had stayed there watching her return. She placed the food gently inside the metal bowl. The sound of metal touching wood was soft, almost musical in the afternoon stillness. The puppy did not rush to eat. He looked at her first, then lowered his head slowly toward the food. It was not the desperate eating behavior of starving animals. He ate with calm, measured movements, as if food was something to be respected rather than consumed. The woman sat down again, watching. The sunlight moved slowly across the street as the afternoon deepened into warmer tones. After finishing the food, the puppy licked his nose once, then turned his body slightly toward her. He moved closer by only one small step, close enough that she could see the tiny darker fur spots around his eyes. They looked almost like markings drawn carefully by nature itself. The woman felt something strange when she studied them. A memory she could not place. Like hearing a melody you once knew but forgot the words to. She spoke quietly. "Do I know you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. The puppy did not answer with sound, but his tail moved once, slowly, like the quiet heartbeat motion she had noticed before. The woman felt warmth spreading gently behind her eyes. Not sadness, just emotional weight without pain. The feeling of standing in front of something important that had been waiting for her without her knowing. The puppy suddenly lowered his head and gently placed it against the wooden step near her hand. Very close, but not touching her directly, as if respecting an invisible boundary that protected her heart. The woman noticed her breathing becoming slower. calmer. Like the world itself was learning to move softly around this small stranger. The afternoon sunlight wrapped around them in a golden quietness that felt almost sacred. The puppy's gaze returned to her arm again. The mark beneath the sleeve. This time the woman did not hide it. She simply watched him watching it. And inside her chest grew the soft, mysterious question that had started earlier. Why did this puppy care so much about that old mark? What story was hidden inside his quiet attention? The puppy blinked slowly. Once. Twice. Like someone holding a secret gently inside their heart without speaking it aloud. The woman felt certain of one thing. This was not the behavior of a wandering stray searching for food. Or even searching for shelter. It was something deeper. Something patient. Something that carried meaning she had not yet learned to read. Because sometimes animals do not approach humans for survival alone. Sometimes they come looking for the invisible places where human hearts once became lost. And the puppy sitting beside her looked like he had spent a long journey searching quietly for exactly that. The days began to feel slightly different after that afternoon. Not dramatically different. Just quietly changed. Like a new color had entered a painting that was already finished. The puppy returned every morning. Sometimes he was already sitting near the porch when the woman opened the door. Other times he arrived while she was preparing tea inside the house. But he was always there. Patient. Waiting. Watching. The woman started noticing small details about him. The way sunlight softened the cream-colored fur around his neck. The way his breathing slowed when she spoke. And most importantly, the way his eyes followed her left arm. The arm with the mark. It was not a frightening observation. It felt more like gentle curiosity from someone who cared about understanding something hidden. The woman found herself becoming more conscious of the sleeve covering the mark. Sometimes she adjusted it without realizing why. Other times she deliberately left it slightly visible. She was unsure which action felt more natural. One morning, the air was especially warm. Golden sunlight rested across the porch like liquid honey flowing slowly over old wooden boards. The woman sat with a small cup of tea balanced between her fingers. Steam rose softly upward, disappearing into the light. The puppy was sitting directly in front of her. Very still. His eyes were focused on her face at first. Then slowly moved downward. Stopping exactly where the edge of her sleeve rested. The woman felt the quiet weight of his attention. Not uncomfortable. Just emotionally present. Like sitting beside someone who was trying to remember something important. She gently placed the teacup beside her. Then slowly rested both hands on her lap. The puppy's ears moved slightly. As if confirming that she was not hiding anything from him at that moment. The wind moved across the street carrying the distant sound of a vendor calling out prices of fruits that no one was buying yet. The world felt slow. Breathing quietly. The woman lowered her gaze toward the puppy. "Why do you keep looking there?" she asked softly. Her voice carried no accusation. Only curiosity wrapped inside warmth. The puppy tilted his head slightly. The movement was familiar now. Like a gesture that had become part of their silent conversation. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he stood up slowly. Walked one step closer. Then stopped. The distance between them was now small enough that she could feel the warmth of his body without touching him. The puppy's gaze settled again on the mark. This time more carefully. More focused. Almost studying it. The woman felt something inside her chest tighten gently. Not fear. Just emotional awareness growing heavier and softer at the same time. She slowly rolled her sleeve upward. Not completely. Only enough to reveal the faded shape beneath. The mark was not clear anymore. Time had softened its original outline into something almost abstract. like a memory drawn by sunlight and forgotten water. The puppy's reaction was immediate but very quiet. His body relaxed. His tail moved once. Slowly. The heartbeat motion returned. The woman noticed something else. The puppy's eyes were not just looking at the mark. They were holding it. Like someone trying to remember a face they had not seen for many years. The sunlight shifted slightly as a cloud passed somewhere far above. The porch suddenly felt softer. More enclosed inside warm light rather than open brightness. The puppy lowered his head slightly. Then made a small soft sound. It was not a whine of sadness. Not a bark of excitement. Just a quiet sound that felt almost like recognition. The woman felt her chest tighten again. She did not understand why tears suddenly became close behind her eyes. She spoke slowly. "Do you know this mark?" The puppy blinked. Once. Twice. Slowly. The wind touched the leaves of the tree beside the house, making soft whispering movements like distant conversation. The puppy walked closer. Carefully. Respectfully. Until his nose was almost touching the edge of her sleeve. He paused there. As if asking permission from something invisible. Then he did something strange. He lowered his head gently and pressed his forehead softly against the fabric covering the mark. The contact was not long. Only a few seconds. But the woman felt a warmth spread through her chest that she could not explain. It was not excitement. Not sadness. Just emotional gravity. Like standing in a place where something important was silently happening without words. The puppy closed his eyes briefly. Very briefly. Then stepped back. And looked at her face. Not at the arm. Not at the mark. At her eyes. The woman felt the strangest sensation. As if the puppy was checking whether she remembered something too. Something buried deep inside the quiet rooms of her heart. She whispered softly, "I don't remember." The words were honest. Gentle. Carried by the wind that moved slowly across the street. The puppy did not appear disappointed. Instead, he sat down again. Close to her. His body facing hers. Like someone choosing to share silence rather than demand answers. The woman realized something slowly. The puppy was not looking at the mark as if it were a wound. He was looking at it as if it were a message. A message he was trying very patiently to read. And inside her chest grew a soft and unfamiliar feeling. That perhaps this puppy was not lost at all. Perhaps he had come searching for something that lived quietly inside her past. Because sometimes animals do not simply see humans. Sometimes they see the stories humans have forgotten they are still carrying. And the puppy sitting in front of her looked like someone who had traveled a very long distance. Just to stare at a memory he believed still existed. The woman began measuring her mornings differently. Not by the clock. But by the moment the puppy arrived. Some days he came early, when the air was still cool and blue like the inside of a quiet shell. Other days he appeared when sunlight was already touching the middle of the street. But he always came. And every time he came, he sat near the porch steps first. As if confirming that this was still the correct place. The woman had started leaving small portions of food outside. Not because the puppy demanded it. But because it felt natural to care for him. She noticed something important. The puppy never ate immediately when she placed food near him. He waited until she sat down beside him. Only then did he begin eating slowly. As if sharing the meal was more meaningful than the food itself. The golden morning light was especially soft one day. It touched the wooden porch in long quiet lines that looked like they were drawn by patient hands. The woman was brushing her hair slowly with her fingers. The puppy was sitting close enough that their shadows almost touched. The wind carried the faint smell of flowering plants from somewhere behind the neighboring houses. The world felt peaceful, like a story resting between two sentences. The woman spoke quietly. "You keep coming back." The puppy tilted his head. The familiar movement felt comforting now, like greeting an old friend. "I wonder why," she said. The words were not demanding, only curious. The puppy finished licking his nose once, then stood up slowly, walked one small step closer, then another. The distance between them was now very small. The puppy lowered himself onto the porch step beside her, not touching her body, but close enough that she could feel the quiet warmth of his presence. The woman noticed that her breathing had slowed naturally, as if her body was learning the rhythm of the puppy's calmness. She lifted her sleeve slightly without thinking. The mark was visible again. The puppy reacted immediately, but not dramatically. His ears moved first. Then his eyes focused gently on the mark. The woman wondered if she was imagining the emotional intelligence inside his gaze, because the puppy looked careful, respectful, like someone who was observing something sacred. She spoke softly. "I don't know why you care about this." The puppy made a small sound again, the same quiet sound she had heard before. It felt like the animal version of a thoughtful breath. The woman felt a strange warmth spreading across her chest. She thought about how animals sometimes form bonds with people based on scent, behavior, or comfort. But this puppy's behavior felt different. It felt intentional, as if there was meaning behind his focus. The puppy suddenly stood up and walked to the metal bowl she used for feeding him. The bowl was empty. He nudged it once with his nose, then looked back at her. The woman understood. She stood up slowly and went inside the house to bring more food. While preparing it, she noticed something strange inside herself. She was beginning to look forward to this routine, not because of the puppy's presence alone, but because his silence felt emotionally safe. Like sitting beside someone who understood loneliness without asking painful questions. When she returned, the puppy was waiting exactly where she left him. Patient. Still. Like time itself had not moved while she was away. She placed the food inside the bowl. The puppy ate slowly. The sunlight moved across his fur, making it glow softly like warm sand touched by afternoon light. The woman sat down again. She spoke after a long moment. "Do you like living on the street?" The question was simple, but it carried the weight of human concern. The puppy stopped eating for a moment, lifted his head, looked at her, then continued eating slowly. The woman interpreted the response not as rejection, but as emotional neutrality, like someone accepting circumstances without complaint. She thought about how animals sometimes endure conditions humans cannot fully understand, and yet still choose patience over chaos. After finishing the food, the puppy walked closer again. This time he did something new. He gently placed his paw on the wooden step near her hand. Not touching her, just sharing space. The woman noticed the gesture immediately. Her heart felt unexpectedly warm. It felt like trust forming quietly between two living beings who did not need words. The wind moved softly across the street. Children's laughter echoed faintly somewhere far away. The puppy's gaze returned to her arm. Not aggressively, not obsessively, but with patient curiosity. The woman felt curiosity growing inside her too. She found herself wondering whether the mark was connected to something she had forgotten, or someone. She thought about childhood memories she could not clearly hold anymore, about places she might have lived, about people she might have loved and lost. But the memories felt like shadows behind frosted glass. Present, but unreachable. The puppy suddenly turned his head toward the street as if hearing something distant, then returned his attention to her. The woman asked quietly, "Do you know something I don't?" The puppy blinked slowly. The movement felt meaningful. Not like confirmation. Not like denial. Just presence. The woman felt a gentle uncertainty growing inside her heart. Because the puppy's behavior was becoming less like that of a stray searching for food, and more like someone studying a hidden language written on her life. As if the mark on her arm was not simply a physical trace, but a story the puppy believed she still carried inside her heart. And the woman wondered, what memory could be so important that a small stray puppy would travel silently through streets every day just to look at it? Because sometimes curiosity is not born from strangers. Sometimes it grows quietly inside bonds that neither human nor animal can fully explain. The morning air felt different that day. Not colder. Not warmer. Just heavier with quiet expectation. The woman woke earlier than usual. She could not explain why. The sunlight outside had not yet fully touched the porch, leaving the wooden steps wrapped in soft blue-gray dawn shadow. She stood near the kitchen window for a moment, holding a cup of warm tea that she had not yet drunk. Her thoughts were slow, peaceful, but waiting, like a melody that knows its next note but has not played it yet. When she opened the front door, the puppy was already there, sitting exactly where he usually sat, as if time itself had placed him there quietly during the night. The woman felt a small, warm surprise bloom inside her chest. "Good morning," she said softly. The puppy responded with a familiar head tilt. The movement felt like a greeting now, like they had established their own language. The woman stepped outside and sat on the porch. The wooden step was slightly cool beneath her. The puppy stood up slowly and moved closer. But something was different in his behavior today. His tail moved once, then stopped, then moved again very slowly. The heartbeat motion was present, but less relaxed, more thoughtful. The woman noticed immediately. "You seem serious today," she said gently. The puppy did not react with excitement. Instead, he sat down directly in front of her. Very close. Closer than before. The distance between them felt emotionally intimate but physically respectful. The wind moved softly through the street, carrying the distant smell of cooking rice from somewhere behind the houses. The sunlight began touching the edge of the porch, slowly illuminating the world like a stage being prepared for something quiet but meaningful. The woman noticed that the puppy's gaze was not moving away from her arm today. It was focused, patient, intentional. She felt a small tightening sensation inside her chest. Not fear, but awareness. Like standing in front of a door you are not sure you are ready to open. The puppy suddenly made the small soft sound again. But this time it was slightly longer, like a breath carrying emotional meaning. The woman did something she had never done before. Slowly, very slowly, she pushed her sleeve upward. Not halfway. Not briefly. But enough that the mark was clearly visible under the morning light. The mark was shaped like a faded pattern. Not sharp. Not fresh. Just something that time had softened without erasing. The puppy's reaction was immediate, but extremely gentle. His ears lowered slightly. Not in sadness, but in emotional attention. He leaned forward one small step, then stopped, as if asking permission again. The woman did not move. The puppy slowly lowered his head and touched the mark very softly with the side of his nose. The contact was almost weightless, like a feather touching water. The woman felt warmth suddenly rise inside her chest. Unexpected. Deep. Quietly overwhelming in a way that was not painful. The puppy closed his eyes briefly during the contact. Only for a moment. Then he stepped back, sat down again, and looked directly into her eyes. The woman felt tears gathering slowly behind her eyelids. She did not understand why. But the feeling was not sadness. It was something closer to emotional release. Like pressure inside her heart gently loosening after being held too tightly for too long. She whispered, "Do you know what this is?" The puppy blinked slowly. Once. Twice. The morning sunlight touched the fur around his eyes, making them glow softly. The woman spoke again. "I don't remember where it came from." The words were honest. Fragile. Carried by the soft wind moving through the porch. The puppy lowered his body slightly and placed his chin gently on the wooden step near her hand. The same respectful gesture he had shown before. But this time it felt deeper. More meaningful. The woman placed her hand slowly on the step. Not touching the puppy. Just sharing space. The silence between them felt alive. Comfortable. Like two people sitting beside each other while watching a distant river move slowly under morning light. After a long moment, the puppy made another small sound. This one felt slightly different. More deliberate. Less like breath. More like intention. The woman spoke quietly. "Did you come because of this mark?" The puppy did not answer with movement immediately. He simply looked at her. Patiently. As if confirming that she was ready to ask such a question. Then his tail moved once. Slowly. The heartbeat motion returned. The woman felt something strange and tender inside her chest. Because she began to suspect that the puppy was not looking at the mark as a sign of injury. He was looking at it as if it represented something he believed was still alive inside her. Something she had forgotten. Or buried deep inside the quiet rooms of her heart. The wind moved gently across the street. And for a moment, the woman felt that the world itself was waiting for the next step in this silent conversation. Because sometimes the most important truths do not arrive through speech. They arrive through patient eyes. And the soft, searching heart of a small stray puppy who seems to know something that the human world has forgotten. The woman began remembering small fragments of her childhood. Not clearly. Not like watching a movie inside her mind. More like sensing shadows moving behind a closed window that she could not open fully. The memories came quietly during moments when the puppy sat beside her in silence. Sometimes while she was drinking tea. Sometimes while watching sunlight move across the porch floor. And sometimes late in the afternoon when the air felt heavy with warmth and tired quietness. The mark on her arm had started feeling different. Not physically. Emotionally. Like it was carrying weight she had never noticed before. One afternoon, the sky was covered with thin soft clouds that made sunlight feel filtered and gentle. The puppy arrived later than usual. The woman noticed immediately. He was walking slower. More thoughtful. His tail still moved in the heartbeat rhythm. But the movement was smaller. Less energetic. The woman felt a small anxiety growing inside her chest. "You're late today," she said softly. The puppy sat down near the porch steps without responding immediately. He looked tired. Not sick. Just emotionally quiet. Like someone carrying a long thought inside their mind. The woman placed a bowl of food near him. But the puppy did not eat right away. He looked at her arm first. The mark was slightly visible under the loosened sleeve. The wind lifted the fabric gently. The puppy made the small soft sound again. But this time it felt heavier. More meaningful. The woman felt something tighten gently inside her chest. She spoke quietly. "Do you want me to remember something?" The question was not fully formed. It came from a feeling rather than logic. The puppy blinked slowly. Then stood up. walked closer, and did something that made the woman's breathing pause for a moment. He placed both front paws gently on the porch step and lifted himself slightly so that his eyes were level with hers. The movement was careful, balanced, respectful. The puppy looked directly into her eyes. Not at the arm. Not at the mark. At her. The woman felt emotional pressure rising slowly behind her eyes. Not sadness, but the feeling of standing in front of something important that she had been avoiding remembering. The puppy lowered his head slightly, then pressed his forehead gently against her shoulder. Very softly, like offering comfort rather than demanding attention. The contact lasted a little longer this time. The woman closed her eyes without realizing she was doing it. Warmth spread quietly across her chest. It felt strangely familiar. Like a memory her heart recognized even if her mind could not. After a few seconds, the puppy stepped back, sat down again, and looked at the street ahead as if preparing himself to speak without words. The woman spoke softly. "Did I have a puppy when I was young?" The question felt dangerous and fragile at the same time. The puppy's ears moved slightly. Then he turned his head toward her slowly. The wind moved across the porch carrying the faint sound of distant church bells ringing once somewhere far away. The puppy stood up, walked to the metal bowl. But instead of eating, he pushed it slightly with his nose. The woman understood the intention. She stood up slowly and went inside to bring fresh food. But something inside her felt heavier now. Like an invisible door inside her heart was slowly opening. While preparing the food, she found herself thinking about childhood loneliness. About memories that felt warm but incomplete. About a feeling that someone had once protected her during a difficult time she could not clearly remember. When she returned outside, the puppy was waiting. As always. Patient. She placed the food down. The puppy ate slowly. But after finishing, he did not immediately return to his usual position beside her. Instead, he walked closer to the woman's left side. Very close. And stopped. The woman felt her breathing slow naturally. The puppy suddenly raised his head and looked toward the mark on her arm again. This time his gaze was not curious. It was gentle. Like someone confirming a long-known truth. The woman spoke quietly. "Tell me." Her voice was almost a whisper. "I feel like I forgot something important." The puppy blinked once. Slowly. Then did something unexpected. He pressed his side gently against her leg. Not forcefully. Just sharing warmth. The woman felt tears forming quietly behind her eyes. Because the emotional truth was becoming clearer inside her heart even though she did not yet have words for it. She thought about abandoned animals. About children who feel lost. About promises made in moments of loneliness. And suddenly, a memory moved faintly inside her mind. A small puppy from long ago. Dusty street sunlight. A child voice whispering a promise. "I will come back for you." The thought was not fully formed. But the emotional weight was real. The woman's hand trembled slightly as she lowered it toward the puppy's head. She paused. Waiting. As if asking permission from something invisible. The puppy did not move away. He closed his eyes softly when her fingers touched the fur on his head. Warm. Gentle. Silent. The woman whispered, "Did you wait for me?" The wind moved quietly through the street. The puppy made the small soft sound again. But this time it felt different. Longer. More meaningful. Almost like an answer carried inside breath itself. And inside the woman's chest, the truth began forming slowly. Because sometimes memory is not lost completely. Sometimes it hides inside marks and silence and the patient heart of a small stray puppy who has spent many years searching quietly for the child who once promised to return. The afternoon sky carried a softer light that day. Not bright. Not dark. Just the kind of light that makes the world feel like it is resting inside a warm memory. The woman had been sitting on the porch for a long time without moving. Her tea had gone cold beside her. She did not notice. Because something inside her mind was slowly opening like a forgotten door creaking quietly after years of silence. The puppy was sitting near her left side. Close enough that their shadows merged slightly on the wooden floor. The wind moved gently through the street carrying the smell of distant cooking spices and old summer dust. The woman was thinking about the memory that had surfaced earlier. A child voice. Dusty sunlight. And a promise whispered into the small fur of a puppy she could not clearly see in her mind. She spoke quietly. I knew a puppy when I was small. The words felt fragile. Like touching glass that might break if pressed too hard. The puppy's ears moved slightly. Not excitedly. Just attentively. The woman continued. I remember playing near an old street, maybe near a market. Her fingers tightened slightly around the fabric of her dress. I was very lonely sometimes. The wind moved softly across the porch. The world felt quiet enough to listen. I think I found a puppy once. Her voice became softer. He was lost, or maybe I was the one who was lost. The puppy did not move. He was watching her face carefully. Like someone waiting for a story to reach the point where it matters most. The woman closed her eyes for a moment. Memory came slowly. Like sunlight passing through water. She saw a younger version of herself sitting beside a small street wall. Dust floating in golden afternoon air. A tiny puppy lying beside her. Dusty. Tired. One ear folded. The other slightly upright. The child in the memory was speaking quietly. I will bring food tomorrow. I will come back for you. The voice was very small. Very serious. The child had touched the puppy's head gently before standing up and walking away. The woman's eyes opened slowly. Tears were already forming. She whispered, I forgot. The puppy made the small soft sound again. But this time it carried deep emotional weight. The woman felt warmth spreading painfully and beautifully inside her chest. She spoke again. Did I leave you? The question was not accusation. It was pain wrapped inside love. The puppy stood up slowly. Walked closer. And did something that made the woman's breath stop for a moment. He pressed his forehead gently against the mark on her arm. Very softly. Like completing a circle that had been unfinished for many years. The woman closed her eyes. Warm tears fell silently down her cheeks. Inside her mind, another memory surfaced. The child returning to the street. Searching. Calling softly. But the puppy was gone. The child had cried quietly that day. Not loudly. Just lonely tears falling into dust that carried no answers. The woman whispered, I thought you were gone forever. The puppy stepped back slightly. Looked at her eyes. And for the first time, the woman felt certain that the puppy was not looking at her as an adult. He was looking at the child she once was. The child who had promised to return. The puppy lowered himself slowly and rested his chin on her knee. The gesture felt like forgiveness. Like understanding. Like patient love that had waited without anger. The woman placed both hands gently on the puppy's head. Her fingers moved slowly through the soft fur. I am sorry, she whispered. I was small, and I forgot the way back. The wind moved across the street carrying the distant laughter of children playing somewhere unseen. The puppy closed his eyes. Slowly. Peacefully. The heartbeat tail movement returned. Very soft. Very slow. The woman felt something inside her heart loosen. Like a knot she had carried without knowing it was there. She realized something deeply important. The puppy had not come to punish her for forgetting. He had come to remind her that promises made in loneliness are not erased by time. Because love does not disappear simply because memory becomes cloudy. The woman spoke one last time. Did you wait all these years? The puppy made the small soft sound again. Longer this time. More complete. The woman believed it was his answer. She understood it inside her chest even if words were absent. Because sometimes animals do not need language to express devotion. They carry memory inside their presence. The woman leaned slightly forward and touched her forehead gently against the puppy's head. Like completing a silent prayer. The sunlight wrapped around them warmly. The street was quiet. The world felt small and peaceful around two hearts that had found each other again after many forgotten years. And inside the woman's chest grew a healing warmth she had not felt since childhood. Because sometimes the people we lose are not truly gone. Sometimes they return in the quiet form of patience. In the gentle eyes of a small stray puppy. Who remembers a promise a child once made under dusty golden sunlight. The evening arrived slowly. Like someone lowering a warm golden curtain across the sky. The sunlight had softened into deep honey-orange tones that rested gently across the street, the houses, and the quiet wooden porch where the woman and the puppy sat together. The world felt peaceful. Not excited. Not sorrowful. Just quietly complete. The woman had stopped crying a while ago. The tears had carried something heavy away from her chest, leaving behind a feeling of light emotional exhaustion mixed with warmth. The puppy was lying beside her now. His body pressed softly against her left leg. Close. But still respectful of her space. The wind moved gently through the street carrying the sound of distant evening prayer calls and the faint laughter of children returning home. The woman looked down at the puppy. His eyes were half closed. Peaceful. Resting. Like someone who had finally reached the place they were searching for. She spoke softly. Are you tired? The puppy did not respond with movement immediately. After a long quiet moment, his tail moved once. Slow. Heart-like. The woman smiled gently. She placed her hands slowly on his head. The fur was warm from the evening sunlight. Comforting. Familiar in a way her heart did not fully understand but accepted deeply. I think, she said quietly, that I was very lonely when I was small. The words came naturally now. Not forced. Not painful. Just honest. I think you stayed inside my heart even when I forgot you. The puppy made the small soft sound again. This time it felt like breathing warmth rather than speaking. The woman continued. I am sorry I could not come back for you. The wind moved softly across the porch. The world felt patient. Listening. The puppy lifted his head slightly and pressed his nose gently against her hand. The contact was warm. Reassuring. Like answering forgiveness without words. The woman whispered. I hope you were not lonely. The puppy closed his eyes briefly. Then opened them again. She felt certain inside her chest that his answer was yes and no at the same time. Because loneliness had existed. But so had patience. The woman suddenly realized something very deep. The puppy had not survived street life simply by chance. He had waited. Not with bitterness. Not with fear. But with the quiet emotional endurance that only loyal hearts can carry. She spoke softly. You found me again. The puppy stood up slowly. Walked one step closer. Then placed both front paws gently on the porch step so that he could look directly into her eyes. The evening sunlight touched his face, making the fur around his eyes glow softly like warm dust floating in memory light. The woman felt her heart becoming very quiet. The puppy pressed his forehead gently against her forehead. The contact was longer this time. Warm. Deep. Healing. The woman closed her eyes. She felt something inside her chest settle into stillness. Like a storm that had been searching for a place to rest finally choosing the ocean. After a few seconds, the puppy stepped back. Sat down again beside her. The woman spoke quietly. "Will you stay?" The puppy blinked slowly. Once. Twice. Then lay down gently beside her, resting his head on her foot. The woman smiled through another wave of warm tears that did not feel painful. She understood the meaning inside the silence. The puppy would stay as long as she needed him. Because sometimes love does not return in the same form it left. Sometimes it returns wearing the soft fur of patience. The eyes of a memory that refuses to forget. And the heart of a small stray puppy who spent years walking quietly through streets just to sit beside the child who once promised to come back. The sky darkened slowly. Stars began appearing like small distant memories shining above the sleeping town. The woman spoke one last time. "I am home now." The puppy made the small soft sound again. Long. Gentle. Complete. The heartbeat tail movement returned one final time. The woman felt peace settle deeply inside her chest. Not happiness that bursts loudly, but the warm, quiet happiness that stays. The kind that heals loneliness without trying to erase the past. She understood then that some promises are not broken by forgetting. Some promises simply wait. Patiently. Inside dust and sunlight and the silent memory of love. The streetlights turned on one by one. Golden circles of light watched over the small porch where a woman and a stray puppy rested together in the evening quiet. The woman placed her hand softly on the puppy's head and whispered, "Thank you for finding me." The wind carried the words away gently into the night. And the puppy closed his eyes peacefully beside the woman who had once been the lonely child he had waited for all these years. Because sometimes, the heart does not forget the promises made in childhood. And sometimes, the most beautiful truth is that love does not disappear. It only waits quietly until the soul is ready to remember.